Tenma was an ordinary orphan teenage boy who likes to solve all of his problems with his fists. He grew up in an orphanage with his friends, but he's yet to find out that he is actually an ancient warrior that reincarnates every 200 years. His soul is destined to be by the side of his goddess Athena through all ages and rise up to face the dark Lord Hades in the prophesied Holy War, so he must train to fulfill his destiny. Our story starts as a boy arrives in town for the first time and is excited to finally be here. But his first taste of town life turns out to be two boys throwing stones at a dog, trying to kill it. He can't just sit and watch, so he jumps in to save it, taking a stone to the head to shield the dog and getting injured in the process. But the boys are still intent on making sure this thing sees doggy heaven today, since they worked all day in the coal mines to get paid pennies. And just as they were finally about to eat, the dog stole and ate their lunch. So now, since the dog ate their lunch, it's going to become their lunch. The boy doesn't want the dog to be on the menu, so he offers to give them his expensive bottle of ink in exchange for its life. They'll provide them with more than enough money to replace their food if they sell it, so they agree and start to walk off. However, before they can leave, hospital bills get added to the list of expenses after one gets his face rearranged by a kick from Tenma. Tenma scolds the blonde boy for giving up the ink that he had to slave away for weeks to acquire, but the other two boys get back up and arm themselves with wooden planks to return the favor he did them. But Tenma is simply above their level as he simultaneously smashes both planks and knocks them out once more. The blonde boy begs him to stop, since the boys are just upset because they are broke, and giving them any more hospital expenses would be the end of them. Hearing his friends pleas, Tenma relents and offers the weakest apology possible as he begins to walk off with blonde boy. But before he leaves, he threatens the two boys once more, warning that if they ever come after his friend again, what they'll be able to eat will be the least of their problems. Later, blonde boy is seen creating his masterpiece of a painting when he gets an unexpected visitor. The man is a priest from the cathedral in the forest who had come here to have a first-hand look at the skills of the boy whom he heard so much about. The priest recalls that he had been coming to his cathedral, often in an attempt to get a glimpse of the painting of a goddess that they keep locked away in the basement. Said painting is rumored to be so magnificent that anyone, even the most hardened of serial killers, would feel remorse for their actions after laying their eyes on its beauty. It is one of the blonde boy's greatest wishes to see such a magnificent painting, but the painting is not open to the public, so he is always turned away at the gate in the end. The priest takes a look at blonde boy's painting and asks why the angel's wings haven't been painted yet. The boy answers that he hasn't been able to make the right colors to fully express what he believes it should look like, so he left it blank until he could get it right. The priest agrees, starting to look a little sinister, and says there is always going to be a limit to the colors that a human will be able to produce, but if he is interested in finding some true color, then in the mountains he will find the blood of an angel. In other words, the reddest of the red, a true color. With no other information, no guide, and without telling anyone where he is going, the boy heads out into the mountains alone in search of this true color, with his dog as his only companion. But while he doesn't find any red, he does find the most magnificent scenery he has ever seen, so he decides to set up his canvas and paint to capture its beauty. However, his piece is cut short as a woman in all black soon appears, and within seconds of being on screen, she has already killed the dog that blonde boy spent so much effort saving. Then, while he is still in a state of confusion, this grown-ass woman walks up to him and kisses the 15-year-old boy. Apparently, this was all planned out from the beginning, and the blonde boy is going to be used as the vessel for the god of the Underworld, Hades, and he is now being awakened. Elsewhere in the forest, this farmer was just minding his own business when he gets lasered to his doom for no reason. These are the servants of Hades, the specters, and they are just murdering people for fun right now. But their fun is cut short after they are interrupted by this man. He has some questions to ask them, but he already knows they won't willingly give him any answers, so he equips his armor and beats them to the ground. He is one of the supremely powerful saints of God and is here because of his mission to get his revenge on Hades, so he asks them to reveal his location. However, they remain loyal and refuse to give up their master, informing the saint that the revival has already begun. Back in the city, the blonde boy wakes up to find Tenma had carried him back to their home after he found him passed out in the forest. We finally find out that his name is Alone, and his parents must really held a grudge to give him a name like that. He wonders how Tenma was able to find him despite him never telling him about his little excursion. So Tenma explains that he could sense his presence out in the mountains and felt it diminishing after something happened, so he rushed over as fast as he could. Similarly, Tenma can sense something within himself as well, like the universe itself, and when he focuses on that feeling, he can fill his body with unknown strength. Soon after, one girl comes into the room with terrible news. The river is overflowing and sending water towards the town. And the people within the wall went, "I missed the part where that's my problem," and shut the gates, leaving those outside the walls to get swept away by the waves. Tenma made a promise to his friends to always protect them, so he isn't going to let his friends get hurt, so he rushes out to go deal with the problem. He finds that a rock slide had caused the direction of the river to change, so he does the only thing he can think to do right now and starts punching the wall of rocks. His skin rips and bones shattered after the impact of his punches, but he keeps going for the sake of his friends. The Saint feels someone using a power called a cosmos and approaches to find Tenma boxing a rock wall. He's impressed by the kid's determination as he draws upon the power within himself to finally destroy the wall, but can't say he thinks the kid is very smart because he is standing right in the path the river would take. After so much exertion, Tenma falls to the ground, prompting the Saint to jump down and rescue him before the rushing water could sweep him away. After he is safe, the Saint talks to Tenma and asks him to become a Saint of Athena alongside him and use his power for the good of humanity. Tenma agrees to the proposal, and to commemorate his departure, Alone wants to make a painting to remember him by, but he is unable to complete it because he still lacks the right colors to capture Tenma's essence. So they make a promise to each other that he will finish the painting after Tenma has become a saint and returned alive, and Alone would have become a great painter by then. They head outside to meet with Doko, and upon seeing Alone, he can tell that something is terribly wrong with this boy, but he leaves things as they are and begins his journey with Tenma. This can be regarded as one of the biggest fuck-ups in the entire series, and elsewhere, the servants of Hades continue to await the day when their lord will fully awaken from his human vessel. In the Greek sanctuary, the saints are all gathered, and at the center are the 12 zodiac saints, and beyond that is the goddess Athena's chamber, where she watches over the sanctuary personally. On the training grounds, the Saint Cadets are engaged in likely deadly combat, yet despite all their intensity, only a few of them will actually succeed in becoming saints. Tenma is over in the corner doing some stretches when he is confronted by this boy, Yato, who challenges him to a fight. Yato's friends try to reason with him to not face the boy who punched a hole through a rock wall by himself, but Yato seems to take offense to the idea that Tenma might be stronger than him, as he proudly declares that he is the strongest person here. Tenma had heard about him and is up for the challenge, so he reaches for a handshake to begin their spar, but Yato isn't up for good sportsmanship and immediately tries to go for a cheap shot on him. Tenma sees this coming and jumps into the air to avoid it, landing behind Yato, and they then begin to fight. But while Tenma was pretty confident leading into this fight, his skills weren't sufficient enough to cash the check his mouth was writing, so he gets his first taste of defeat at the hands of Yato. He is frustrated by his loss, especially when Yato used the momentum from his victory to call Tenma weak, a fraud, and a mistake. He tries to take his anger out on a nearby rock, however, he does minimal damage to it, only solidifying the fact that he is weak. Doko returns to check in on Tenma's training since he has been here for 3 months, but he isn't all that impressed since he can barely use the power he has in his body. Tenma knows he should have the capability within his body, but can't understand why he isn't able to do what he did back by the river anymore. Doko explains that everything in this world is made of atoms, and as saints, they hold universes within their bodies called cosmos, which allow them to harness great power. Back then, his emotions likely made him subconsciously harness his universe and release the power held in his body. So if he wants to grow stronger, he's going to have to take a physics lesson and learn how to control this power. He then demonstrates what one can do once they learn how to control the power in their body by shattering the entire boulder with nothing but his pinky finger. Tenma sits there and thinks about how he needs to get stronger to keep his promise of protecting the people he cares about, when he notices someone wearing the same promise bracelet that he has. He realizes it must be the other friend whom he had made a promise to long ago and runs after the person, grabbing her hand to get her attention. At first, she doesn't recognize him and wonders why this strange man has just grabbed her out of nowhere, but Tenma reminds her of the promise they had made and shows her the matching bracelets they exchanged as proof of it. Sasha remembers who Tenma is and is very happy to see him, but as he asks her what she is doing here, they are suddenly attacked by this Dr. Octopus-looking guy. Tenma grabs Sasha and jumps out of the way, but he ends up getting grabbed by the tentacles and made to cough up blood before being thrown against a wall. The tentacle guy looks over to Sasha and is about to reenact a certain genre of cultured anime, but this enrages Tenma and causes his power to rise, allowing him to break free and almost turn Tentacle Man into shish kebab. However, his punch was evaded and he was shocked until he fell unconscious. While he is getting his head stomped in, Sasha has finally had enough and prepares to act to save him. But before that becomes necessary, a saint called Xian intervenes and defeats the intruder, referring to Sasha as Goddess Athena. 2 years later, Tenma has completed his training and officially become a Pegasus saint with silver armor. He is saddled with the duty of battling the Underworld's forces for the sake of Athena, aka Sasha, and he is more than happy to do just that. He stands and looks to Sasha, proud that he will be able to keep his promise to her and Alone. Meanwhile, Alone is faced with the darkness within him and is slowly being led to become a deathmonger by the followers of Hades. And once he finally accepts what he truly is, the moon goes dark and the Lord of the Underworld has fully awakened. Near that evil cathedral, several Silver Saints are engaged in combat with some Spectre Hades. They possess enough power to easily defeat them, so after killing all but one, they decide to follow it back to its base in order to gather more intel. But as they arrive at that cathedral, they are hit with the reality that they just walked past a save point and weren't prepared for a boss battle. Back at the sanctuary, those Silver Saints return to give a report on what happened on their recon mission. They say they encountered a suspicious cathedral and extremely powerful specters, but they single-handedly defeated every single one of them. This is where Xian calls their bullshit because there is no way they were able to win a fight like that, forcing them to reveal their true intentions and attack Sasha. They have been killed and resurrected, forced to serve Hades now. So though it pains her, they must be killed to relieve their souls of their torment. After being forced to kill their comrades, the Gold Saints ask to be sent to the town to avenge them, so they select a few saints, including Tenma and Yato, to go to the town to face Hades. As they approach the town, Tenma can tell that something is terribly wrong, so he rushes ahead of the group and finds that everything has been lit ablaze. He returns to his orphanage to look for Alone, but all he finds is a splatter of blood on the wall and Alone's paintings plastered to that same wall. A specter then busts through the wall soon after and attacks Tenma, and Tenma, thinking he must have killed Alone, is fueled with rage like never before, blowing the specter away with his meteor fist. The others catch up to him, but the surprises keep on coming as the specters of Hades and Hades in the body of Alone show up after knocking Yato out. Tenma can't believe what he is seeing right now, as the Alone he knew would never so much as hurt a puppy, let alone murder hundreds of people, but he still acts as a smile on his face despite all that he has done. He is happy that Tenma was able to keep his promise to return as a saint, so now he will keep his promise and finish the painting with the best red he could find, the blood of the innocent. After 2 strokes of his paintbrush, Tenma collapses to the ground while spitting up blood, and Alone begins to leave while shedding tears at the loss of his best friend. Doko yelled out in anger, questioning why Alone would do such a thing as kill his best friend. But in his twisted eyes, killing Tenma was the best salvation he could give him. Doko has heard enough of his crazy talk and tries to attack Alone, but gets stopped by one of Hades' heavenly specters and gets pushed back. He is surprised that this guy has the power to rival a Gold Saint, but as he was about to re-engage in battle to avenge the deaths of Tenma and Yato, Xian pulls him away, saying they can't win a fight here, so they have to retreat and report back to the sanctuary. Hades lets them go because he has accomplished his mission of destroying the town and crushing everything that Alone once loved, so the Holy War can now commence. He calls all of his specters back and shows them a map of the constellations. Every saint has a guardian constellation. When that saint dies, the constellation goes black as it does with the Pegasus constellation, meaning that Tenma had actually died. He wants them all to fill the sky with nothing but black by killing all the saints and eventually Athena herself, so Minos is sent out to lead a siege on the sanctuary and bring about its downfall. As they leave to begin their raid, we see Yato, who had managed to survive the fight, crawl out of the rubble. He looks up to see the malignant shrine that now stands where the village once was. And as he faces the reality of the situation, he's hit with another grave reality as he finds Tenma's lifeless body beside him. And from a distance, a woman watches, surprised that there were still survivors in a place like this. Xian and Doko return to the sanctuary to report the situation to Athena. She is informed that Yato and Tenma have both perished, greatly saddening her, but she then also receives the news that the vessel that Hades has reincarnated into is called Alone. She has a lot of emotions to process with what has happened to her 2 dear friends, but her duty as Athena takes priority, so she gives instructions to prepare for an all-out attack on the Underworld's forces. Back in the town, Yato has just noticed the hooded woman and attacks her, thinking she's part of the specters, but she manhandles him, throwing both his body and his pride to the ground. She tells him to calm the hell down before he alerts the specters to their presence. She tells him she was instructed to come here and retrieve the body of the Pegasus Saint Tenma by her master, but Yato doesn't see what good it would do since he is already dead. According to her master, all hope is not lost for saving Tenma, as there is still some life left in his body, but they need to take him back to have any hope of reviving him. Yato carries Tenma's body while the warrior Yuzuriha makes a call and has them teleported to a place called Jimir. She then directs him into a house where he finds dozens of Broken Saint's armor, making him think that he was deceived into a specter trap. He turns around to attack Yuzuriha, but again gets evaded with ease, unlike his ego, which is taking direct hits. As he prepares to use his Cosmo to fight her, an old man comes out of the back and one-shots him, further damaging his pride. The old man explains that though they were posted to a different battlefield, they still serve Athena, and this is simply a place where broken and dead saint cloths are brought to be revived. However, it requires the blood of a saint to be done, so to demonstrate he has Yuzuriha, who has been trained amid the same conditions as a saint, cut her wrists and pour her blood all over the armor. The man then uses his chisel and hammer to repair it, making it even more powerful than it already was. Yato goes to check on Yuzuriha, who is weak from the blood loss, but she says she is fine and shrugs it off as they have bigger issues to deal with anyway. Tenma, though his body may be dead, his soul is still intact thanks to the promise bracelet that Athena had made for him. It contains her prayers for his protection, so it keeps his soul from being corrupted by the Underworld. But he must be stuck wandering the depths of the Underworld right now, so they need to get him back. Yato loves Athena, but he also realizes that she loves Tenma most of all, so he is willing to put his feelings aside and do what he must to ensure that Athena doesn't suffer heartbreak. The old man asks if he is willing to risk his life for the mission, and after he confirms, the man tells him he must go to the Underworld himself to find Tenma's soul and bring it back, while raising a sword to slash in his head. But the old man was just trolling and gives Yato the sword as it has the blessings and prayers of Athena bestowed upon it and will protect him so he can fight his way through the Underworld. He then uses a spell to separate Yato's soul from his body and sends him to the Underworld, along with Yuzuriha for backup. They find Tenma being held captive by one of Hades' servants, Mandrake, but as they try to release him, they are spotted and attacked. The screams from Mandrake's armor numb the senses of the person hit with it, leaving both Yato and Yuzuriha in a weakened state. Seeing his friends get hurt, Tenma's Cosmo becomes fueled by rage, allowing him to overpower Mandrake and kill him. Now that things have calmed down, they explain to Tenma that he isn't fully dead yet and can return to his body, but first Yuzuriha has a mission to accomplish deeper in the Underworld. The specters that were sent to the sanctuary have begun to lay waste to the saints there, as they are no match for the overwhelming power of Minos. He can take control of their bodies and contort them in ways the human body was never meant for, so it's no easy task to face him. The invading squad moves forward to continue their attack when they come across a field of red flowers. Common sense tells most of them that this looks suspicious, so they should wait before doing anything, but these two seem to lack such senses, so they jump straight into the field of flowers and become statistics on the death toll. This was the doing of the gold Saint Albafica, and as he sits across from them, Minos is captivated by how beautiful this dude is and begins to question some things about himself. The roses are poisonous, however. After learning that these roses were poisonous, rather than avoiding the person standing in the middle of the poisonous roses, 3 of the specters run straight into it and end up dead as well. The reason Albafica is unaffected is because, as part of a security measure, the path to Athena's room is covered in these roses, and his room happens to be right next to the field of deadly roses. So all that exposure has caused him to build up high-level immunity to their poison. However, he isn't the only one with some level of poison immunity, as one of the specters, Niobe, is also immune to the effects of the flowers. He has his own poison-based powers and produces a purple gas, which may just be his BO, that kills the roses as it spreads through the air. Albafica couldn't let such nasty poison spread to the neighboring village, so he took it upon himself to absorb the full front of the BO. Afterward, he is left standing in a comatose state from the gas, while Niobe repeatedly pummels him. But after a few seconds, the color returns to his face and he is fully adapted to the poison. He then uses his own poison to form needles and injects it straight into Niobe's body, finally killing him. But after one victory, Minos comes in to take out Albafica with his puppet Cosmos that takes control of his body. He then orders his men to go kill everyone in that village just for the fun of it while he handles Albafica. But Albafica only laughs at the thought of the specters trying to get to the village because he had already prepared countermeasures for such a situation. Special roses that fly up from the ground and pierce the enemies through the heart, killing them once they turn completely red. His men have been killed, but Minos only laughs in excitement that he will be able to break such an entertaining puppet. Albafika uses the last of his strength to oppose Minos' control and launch an attack at him, but it doesn't pan out as he would have hoped, and he ends up getting his back snapped, dying at his hands. Minos then goes to the village Albafika was protecting and decides to do a bit of landscaping and kill the locals for fun, but by now, having sensed that something was wrong, backup has arrived in the form of Sheen. He prepares to face Minos, but he is ill-equipped to handle the threads that he uses, so it's looking like he's to get his back turned 180 as well. However, before Minos can complete the action, the threads are suddenly cut by roses falling from the sky. And the source of those roses is an unbelievably not dead Albafika. Despite having every bone in his body shattered and his spine disconnected, he still finds the will to walk and defend this village. With a rose in his mouth, he asks Sheen to keep everyone away from him while he deals with Minos and begins his thorn attack. This uses his blood as poisonous needles that will kill upon contact, but Minos can defend against them with his hard armor, so he feels like he has already won the battle. Albafika seems to have run out of blood and drops to his knees, to Minos begins to gloat about him being weak, but Sheen points to his chest, showing that while he wasn't paying attention, Albafika hit him with a bloody rose that has now poisoned him. He's going to die any moment now, and he can't believe he fell for something like this, but before he goes, he wants to at least take out the village as he unleashes his full power. However, Sheen uses his power to isolate Minos until he finally succumbs to the poison, but it is not a total victory as Albafika's wounds have finally caught up to him and he perishes. But the worst part is that he didn't even really accomplish anything by killing Minos, since Hades can just hit the revive on any of the specters that get killed. It's not looking good for the side of the sanctuary, but they receive word from Jamil that if they can hold out for one more day, they will get good news from Tenma and the others in the Underworld. Tenma and the others make their way through the Underworld to find the key to stopping the revival of the specters, but they are suddenly confronted by Hades, who had sensed Tenma's presence. Yuzuria tries to attack him, but he's far too powerful for that and blows her away. He then goes up to Tenma and asks him to join the dark side to help destroy Athena so they can be together again, but Tenma remains steadfast in his devotion to her, and he promises that the next time they meet, he will beat him, not only for Sasha's sake, but also to save Alone from this path of darkness. Hades finds it amusing, so he leaves Tenma alive and looks forward to their fight the next time they meet at the sanctuary. Tenma and the others continue on their journey until they come across the Bloodfalls, and at the top is their goal, one of the golden rain trees of the Underworld. As they climb up to the tree though, Tenma feels something is off, and as he turns back, he sees that Yato and Yuzuria have become frozen in time. He then hears a voice coming from the waterfall, and out comes the Virgo Gold Saint Asmita. Back in the world of the living, the other Gold Saints prepare for the next wave of specters. They are also slightly worried by the Virgo Saint, who even after this whole commotion, has yet to leave his room. He always acts on his own and has been rumored to be able to speak to the gods, but they wonder what he could be meditating about at a time like this. In the Underworld, Asmita knocks Tenma back with a powerful strike, but isn't surprised that he managed to survive since he's a god killer. Tenma doesn't understand what he is talking about, so Asmita explains that his fate has been intertwined with Hades since the Age of Myth. He was always by the side of Athena and played a huge role in changing the course of the Holy War, as he is the only human capable of hurting the god of the Underworld. But with the sorry state of his current reincarnation, Asmita doesn't believe he will be able to stop Hades this time. Tenma doesn't care and jumps up to attack once more, but is still ineffective as Asmita uses his Cosmo to neutralize it. He then shows Tenma his past, revealing how he had hurt Hades in many incarnations, scaring the Lord of the Underworld so much that he went into hiding in the depths of Hell's paradise, Elysium. He then put his soul into the body of Alone to carry out his plans, so it is partially Tenma's fault that Alone turned out this way. Knowing all this, Tenma is devastated, but his resolve to keep his promise to Alone and Sasha remains as strong as ever, so he leaps up again to attack Asmita. But even though the attack is not powerful enough to harm him, Asmita was still impressed by the resolve of Tenma's soul, so he gets out of his meditation, posed to face him head-on. He casts his treasures of heaven, which overloads his brain and strips Tenma of his 5 senses, and since he is a spirit right now, that means he will cease to exist. But with him gone, Sasha is as good as dead, and seeing the image of Sasha being killed, Tenma is enraged beyond reason and attacks Asmita again, this time actually managing to connect his blow. However, it turned out to be nothing more than an illusion, as what he actually hit was the golden rain tree. It has reacted to his Cosmo and is bearing fruit, the same one that the master of Jimir was after, so Asmita tells him to bring back as many as he can. He can't say he respects Tenma's reasons, but he understands them, so he wishes Tenma good luck as he returns to the surface. The others unfreeze as Tenma falls off the cliff. They don't understand much of what happened, but Tenma doesn't have much time before he loses his soul, so they have to hurry and leave the underworld. Back on Earth, Asmina meets with Athena and apologizes for doubting Tenma, but now that he has seen the boy for himself, though he is pretty dumb, he can tell that he's a good kid and has what it takes to save the world. Tenma and the others rush to leave the underworld, but they are confronted by the beetle specter of the ugly star. Having no time to spare, Yado throws Tenma to Yuzuriha and tells her to get out of here while he keeps this guy busy, even if it means he may not be able to return to his body. As they exited the underworld, Tenma's soul returns to his body, but he realizes that Yado is still stuck in the underworld battling the beetle specter and incidentally getting his ass whooped. He can tell by now that he doesn't have the strength to beat this specter and wishes he could have at least gotten to see Athena's face once more before he died. Accepting his death, he then goes in for one final kick, but the sword that was given to him for protection begins to glow and his soul is forcefully sent back to Earth. Tenma is glad they all made it back alive, but it is too soon to celebrate as the specters have followed them here to retrieve the golden rainberries. The specters run across the safety code violation bridge, but as they are halfway across, they have their path blocked by Asmina, who then knocks them all off into the spike pit below. After he was done with that, he goes to meet the master of Jumir and asks for the berries. The specters are immortal, but they have one weakness, and that weakness is the berries which can be crafted into weapons that can truly kill a specter. But to do that, they need Asmina to hone his Cosmo to great heights, and they don't have much time to do it either since the specters he just killed have come back to life and are attacking again. Tenma, Yado, and Yuzuriha go out to face the specters, but every time they manage to kill one, ends up being meaningless as they simply come back to life afterwards. Even with the odds stacked against them, they only really need to buy time for Asmina to do what he needs to do. Still, with how things are going, that's gonna be easier said than done. At the top of the tower, Asmina is glad that his life finally has some meaning to it. He was born blind but was able to see all the suffering of the world. However, he held no great desire to help rid the world of its suffering. But that changed once he met Athena as a child and felt her compassion. Now he's willing to do anything to make her wish to save the world come true. A bright light flashes at the top of the tower, and the specters begin to focus their attention on stopping Asmina, but it was already too late and Asmina uses his Cosmo to kill them. And as he has finished the ritual, the beads that conceal the souls of the specters have been formed and they can no longer revive themselves. However, the price for such a powerful item was his life. Back at the sanctuary, Hades has made his move and broken through Athena's barrier to make his way into the sanctuary walls. He stands atop a tower and greets Athena, while she sits there horrified to see her beloved brother, alone as the very incarnation of evil. As he stands on the tower, he begins raining down explosion after explosion on the sanctuary, causing mass death and panic among the regular people that live there. The saints can't believe Hades would dare set foot in their sanctuary alone, but they are going to make sure he regrets that decision greatly. However, before they can make a move, they are hit with a wave of pressure from Hades that forces them to their knees. Hades then makes his way over to Athena, saying it had been well over 200 years since they last met face to face. She still can't accept that this is what alone has become, and this little kid tries to get in front of her to protect her. But honestly, what does he think he's going to do against the god of the underworld? Athena pushes the boy back to relative safety and gets up to face him. Hades calls her stupid for placing so much importance on maintaining her human memories when they are at war, but gets interrupted by the saint Sisyphos as he manages to stand up despite the intense pressure he's under and draws his bow. Hades takes offense to getting a bow pointed at him and applies more pressure to Sisyphos, but his will is unrelenting and Hades recalls from Alone's memories that this was the man who took Athena away from them 5 years ago. Sisyphos confirms it but says he wonders what the reason was for Athena to be reincarnated in this day and age alongside Tenma and Alone, who then became the vessel of Hades. Hades interjects and says all that matters now is that he is Hades, and this, all the love that Athena showed Alone as Sasha was pointless. Sisyphos yells that it wasn't pointless, and for all the saints, Athena's love represents hope as he fires his arrow. But he immediately gets hit with a return to sender. Seeing her saint get murdered before her eyes, Athena is enraged and prepares to fight Hades all out, but before their showdown begins, a blinding light, which Hades recognizes as teleportation magic, shines before them, and from that light, Tenma, along with the golden beads, emerges ready to beat Hades down. Hades looks at Tenma's hands and sees the rosary made from the golden rainberries. With this, the playing field is evened, and the immortal specters are now very much killable. Tenma asks Alone why he let himself end up like this. Since the very beginning, Tenma had been fighting to keep the promise the three of them made together, and now Alone wishes to kill his own sister. Is he really okay with that? Alone tells Tenma that he still values the promise they made when they were kids, but they aren't the same people anymore, and moreover, this is war, so anything goes. Even if his specters can't be revived anymore, his ultimate goal is to bring about the death of all living things, including the specters, so it's fine if they die. Tenma can't stand to listen to any more of his speech, so he jumps into the air to attack him. However, Hades uses his powers to stop him mid-air and prepares to stab Tenma through the chest. But before that can happen, a blinding golden light emerges from the ground, and the powers of Hades seem to be sealed. The floor is covered with talismans of Athena that sap Hades of his power, and this was the doing of the Pope, who was apparently a gold saint that survived the last holy war 200 years ago. However, despite him being weakened, Hades is far from being powerless and blows the Pope back. Though the Pope had one more trick up his sleeve, and with the help of Athena, they teleport the temple there standing onto a tower where the 108 specters were previously sealed. At the start of the Holy War, Hades sealed his body in the Underworld and transferred his soul to the body of Alone to take it over. So if they manage to seal the soul of Hades in his weakened state, the Holy War can end. However, it's going to be easier said than done since Hades isn't alone here. Pandora has come to back him up and plans to finish off the saints on his behalf. But Hades has grown tired of being here and just wishes to return to his castle. And as Tenma tries to call out to him, he tells him that Alone is gone, and nothing he says or does can reach him anymore. He tells them they had better leave and prepare for death as he turns the sky into a canvas. This is called the Lost Canvas, and once his painting is complete, the world will summarily perish. Everything he paints ends up dead, so after his painting has covered the entire world, there will be nothing but tranquil black remaining. They prepare to make their exit, but you can't just say you're going to wipe out all life on Earth and expect to walk out uncontested. As Tenma charges up his Cosmo and leaps to strike them down. To counter him, Pandora summons a specter called Violate, and she wastes no time popping out of the shadows and smacking Tenma back. The Gold Saint Aldebaran has to get involved and hold Violate down so Tenma can go after Hades. He flies off after the chariot and catches up to it, but before he can break into the carriage, Pandora shocks him with her staff, causing him to fall off as they make their escape. As they ride off, Pandora asks why Hades walks straight into the enemy sanctuary alone. He responds that he simply wished to do it, and then counters, asking why she had been following him. It is as though she is monitoring his actions, but she tries denying such a thing. Elsewhere, the specters are beginning to question whether Hades is truly the same Lord of Darkness they knew, because they believe he is unfit to lead them, largely due to the influence of Alone's soul in his body. Back at the sanctuary, they have begun reconstruction for all the damage that was done to the place while Hades was in his rampage earlier. Yet as they work, the looming threat of Hades' painting that will destroy the whole world hangs above them literally, as the lost canvas is still visible in the sky. Tenma is lost in thought over how screwed they are, but Doko comes to cheer him up a bit with a punch to the head. It's never good to be left alone when you're bummed out, so he asks Tenma to help him with some of the cleanup. The last time Doko saw Tenma was back when he had been killed by Hades, so he really thought he was gone for good, but he's glad that he made it back alright. But even if he made it back safe, several saints have already lost their lives, like Sisyphus for example. After getting hit with the arrow from Hades, he has yet to wake up. This is likely because attacks from Hades harm the soul directly, so there isn't much hope of him recovering. None of this makes sense to Tenma wreaking mass destruction in the sanctuary, shooting Sisyphus, and trying to kill Athena with no remorse. None of that is something Alone would ever even consider doing. Doko sympathizes with Tenma, but he can no longer show any consideration towards Alone after the severe war crimes he has committed. And the citizens of the sanctuary must feel the same way about the issue. He is currently the most powerful and dangerous enemy humanity there is, so they must focus all their efforts into destroying him. Yet, with that being said, Doko doesn't want Tenma to give up on his friendship with Alone. They have been together for a long time, and with everything he has heard from the other saints, he is sure that the key to stopping this holy war lies with Tenma and his loyalty to his friends. Tenma is happy to see that Doko supports him, but their talk is cut short as one of the Silver Saints asks for Tenma's help with clearing out destroyed temple. And while the guy didn't say anything, the massive pillars he was carrying compared to Tenma's one pillar threatened his masculinity. So Tenma rushes over to defend his honor by outlifting this guy while cleaning out the rubble. Meanwhile, Pandora gets a visit from the gods of sleep and death, Hypnos and Thanatos. They are disappointed in Pandora for being so slow in performing her duty to get Hades to wipe out all life on Earth. And they also blame her for his little sanctuary one-man show stunt, hitting her with lightning as punishment. They warn her that further failures will not be tolerated, and she needs to remove the thing that is lingering in Hades' heart, Tenma. To accomplish this, she needs to destroy Tenma's soul so he can never be brought back to life again. And to that end, she sends out 2 specters to ensure his permanent demise. Back at the sanctuary, Tenma and the other young saints continue to train among themselves, but Tenma is now leagues above them in terms of strength and skill. Aldebaran, who was watching Tenma beat down his peers, gets a great idea and decides to become Tenma's training partner to give him an actual challenge. Late into the night, they continue to spar with one another and Tenma gets knocked back, but his fighting spirit hasn't diminished whatsoever because he is still willing to fight Aldebaran despite his punches doing no damage. Aldebaran is impressed by the strength Tenma possesses, but he's going to have to do a lot more training if he ever wants to be capable of defeating Hades. The other trainees that were there have been watching them fight for hours now and are starting to doze off. But it seems that the sleep isn't naturally induced, but rather the work of these bats. Even Tenma gets put to sleep by their screeches as one of the specters that were sent here has come to finish Tenma off. With him on the ground, he is completely defenseless as the specters raises his hand to chop off his head. But before he can complete his mission, Aldebaran yells for him to stop. And I could ask anyone in the world, but I'll never find the answer to why he just stopped inches away from Tenma's neck because he was told to. A specter is surprised that Aldebaran was able to stay awake through the sleep spell that was cast. His grit is really something to behold because he felt himself drifting off to sleep at the sound of those bats and immediately burst his own eardrums so he wouldn't hear it. Thanks to that, he is awake and able to fight the specter as he uses his great horn attack. However, there is a downside to having no hearing. You can't tell when someone is trying to sneak up on you. The 2 specters then start attacking him in tandem, drawing a lot of blood and leaving him confused. But as one gets a little too close, Aldebaran is able to grab his neck and pile-driver him into the afterlife. The other one sees his friend get killed and decides he will use his power, a spell that summons a beheaded woman and has her sing a song that, even with your ears unusable, will still cause the target's heart to stop, which is something he probably should have used a little earlier if he had it the whole time. Aldebaran's heart stops, and by all logic and biology class, he should have died by now. But the hopes and dreams of all the kids he has to protect fuels him further to defend Tenma, and he musters the last of his strength to kill the specter. Tenma wakes up to find Aldebaran dead and realizes it was his fault since the specter assassins were after him. Knowing his presence will only attract more specters to the sanctuary, Tenma decides to leave. A while later, the Gold Saints are panicked looking for Tenma, but he is nowhere on the premises, and it seems he took his Saint's honor with him. Doko thinks of how worried he was because of Alone, and Aldebaran's death probably only made things worse for him, so he just hopes Tenma won't go do anything stupid. And luckily, before he could manage to do something stupid like try to take on the army of specters alone, he was intercepted by the Cancer Gold Saint, Moneygold. And Moneygold was having none of his "I need to leave to keep everyone safe" speech. He tells Tenma he is weak, beats his ass, and then locks him in a cell so he can't run away again. Meanwhile, Pandora is in a fit of rage over the failure of her assassins to get rid of Tenma. The entire operation was done without the knowledge of Hades, but she knows this is a necessary action to take and is also sure that Hades will understand why she had to go behind his back to do something like this. She has devoted her entire life to him, so as the one who loves him most, he should be able to forgive her. But as she hears his voice calling him from down the hall, he doesn't seem to be in a very forgiving mood. Thanatos shows up and begins gaslighting the hell out of her, using her love for Hades to cloud her judgment. He says Hades will only grow more distant from her after her recent actions, so she's better off giving him a space with no distractions so he can finish his painting without influence from Tenma, and she can always have him close. But Pandora hasn't gone full yandere yet, so the idea of locking her beloved Hades up is too extreme for her. But they ultimately convince her that if she doesn't do this, then she will inevitably lose Hades' love to try Tenma. She goes to answer Hades' call, and after everything she did, without telling her, she gets yelled at a lot. She is willing to accept all his scolding, but she asks Hades if he still holds any feeling for Tenma in his heart, which he denies, but the lovingly created painting of him and Tenma in their youth which he set as the centerpiece of his painting, tells a different story. Seeing that Tenma still holds a place in Hades' heart, Pandora crosses the line and seals him in the prison realm so he can focus on the lost canvas painting. Back at the sanctuary, Tenma was still trying to break himself out but had had no luck so far. A stone in the ground starts to shift and out from it pops Yato, who has come to rescue Tenma. He isn't sure how Yato knew about this secret passage since he was meant to be in Jumir, but he's not too focused on details right now. He gets out of the passage and surfaces on a mountainside where he is shocked to see a silver saint standing there. Since he is currently meant to be a prisoner, he puts his guard up and prepares for a fight, but the silver saint is revealed to be Yuzuriha, who finally received her armor and is now the Crane's saint. Tenma doesn't understand what is going on, but if Yuzuriha is here, then that master of Jumir must have something to do with all this. He instructed Yuzuriha and Yato to come bust Tenma out of the cell and get him out of the sanctuary. After that, they stick with him wherever he wants to go, while he wants to go to Hades' castle. And Yato's expression shows how stupid that idea is. Meanwhile, the Pope is giving a report to Athena on why he believes it was the right decision to lock Tenma up. From the fact that there was an assassination attempt on Tenma, they know that a lone soul must still cling to Hades and cause him to keep Tenma in his heart, so they can't let him be killed because he will be their trump card. Athena finds his assessment to be logical and thinks what he did might be the right thing to do, but the master of Jumir, who had just arrived, claims otherwise. He thinks it is true that Tenma is their greatest asset against Hades, but he can't be of any use if they don't allow him to fight. The master of Jumir will personally take responsibility for the safety of Tenma, and he has already been broken out of his cell as they speak. It's checkmate, and the Pope concedes, deciding not to go after the escaped Tenma, but Sasha still has things she would like to say to him, so she runs to catch up before they leave. Meanwhile, Pandora is having a casual band session with Thanatos and Hypnos, as they always do on weekends, and they talk about how Tenma's constellation just got brighter, and it seems his connection to Hades from the ages of myth is as strong as ever. But with Hades locked in the prison realm, Tenma will never be able to reach him to interfere with the progression of their plans. But Pandora is upset that Tenma still remains, and it's messing up her harp rhythm. So for the sake of the band, they set up a barrier around the castle that would lead to the death of Tenma if he ever comes near here. Back with Tenma, the group has made it to the edge of the sanctuary, and now plan to head to the castle of Hades. But before they leave, they see Sasha, who came to say goodbye to Tenma, showing her bracelet to remind him of the promise that they made together, and Tenma swears he'll keep his promise as they head off on their next adventure to save the world.